It was amazing. It was also everything I thought it would be. Um, so first of all, it was not what I thought. I had this whole plan. I was going to cut the string myself, break the bond to earth, a very physical metaphor thing. I had a whole speech plan. None of that happened. The whole thing was we were just trying to get ready to go. We didn't have enough ballast, didn't have enough lift. I played with the ballast, and kind of like the whole thing weighed about maybe 400 pounds, and they're like lifting it with one hand, and then it's like it's floating, and then I just drifted away. Like it began just so simply and smoothly, and before I realized it, I was separated from my ground crew, and the crowd started cheering. So I was just kind of like cool. It was like this is really happening, and my and I had a whole bunch of thoughts going on at once. Right, it was quite the experience. But one of the thoughts was, this is really happening. We spent so long working on this, and there was just so many obstacles along the way, and so many things we had to figure out. And it was like it was always in the future. It was always like, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this. But it was always in the future, and now it was now. It was really happening. It was quiet. The craft was stable like a rock. Um, it was just smooth. It was the weather was good. It was cool in the morning, but the sun was coming down. It was like it couldn't be a more picture perfect takeoff. And there was like no wind. I spent an hour within sight of the backyard. I didn't go any elements up, but I basically was right there. It was not turbulent at all. It was cool. The inflation station was the center of action, but really it was just so much bigger than that. It was getting the lines laid out in the field, the anchors, all in the dark, all by rookies, all by people who had never done it before. We're all invented as went along. The inflation station, the balloon runners, people laying the balloons out, having to swap the bottles, the bottle monkeys, all done by volunteers, all in the middle of the night. Maybe a half a dozen key lead people that owned a piece of the puzzle. And like about 1:30 in the morning, it was just all happening. And I just like walked away and said, I trust these guys. And I got about 2 hours of sleep in the middle of the night, which actually turned out to be quite beneficial. And these guys just, all the things that I heard about later on. One regulator was too slow, balloons were popping, they couldn't get the diameters they were looking for. I had to cut some trees down. People were getting tangled up in the ropes outside, not trees, but branches, so they can pass the balloons out to the field. These guys just solved all those problems, and all with volunteer help. And in the middle of the night, one of the things that happened was, again, this is all for the first time for us, the balloons were not filling to the diameter we thought they would. A high percentage of it was popping. I had planned on 5 big ones and 5 small ones popping. I just knew that would happen, handling or something would go wrong. But a much higher percentage were popping. So the field captain made the right call. He started putting a little bit less in each balloon. And therefore, solved one problem, but inadvertently created a couple of others. We didn't have the lift that we were looking for. We ended up leaving on the driveway, roughly a third of the total amount of helium, so roughly a third amount of the lift. So that just set in motion a whole variety of consequences that took a while to play out, but those cards were dealt before the balloons arrived on the UPS truck. That was already in the deal. We just didn't even know about it yet. The balloons we had were typical weather balloons, and in their normal application, they carry a very, very light load. They don't really elongate as much, they're more spherical. And we had 2 sizes, like a 6-foot balloon and an 8-foot balloon, they're nominal sizes. The small ones, based upon what we learned from the first flight, we decided to fill them at 58% of what we had planned on. And the bigger balloons, about the same, 60% of their maximum. So we had downsized them just to be a little bit safer. Turns out we couldn't even reach that. And the balloons themselves weren't spherical like we had modeled. They were quite elongated because the helium was trying to lift, so it's pulling the balloon out of this round shape. So, but we had this cumulative expectation of the number of bottles of helium used, and pretty early on it was obvious we were putting in the balloon, we were putting into the balloons a lot less than we had thought, and they popped quite a few, so we didn't even have the number of balloons that we thought we would. And the balloons that got left out at the end were one of the more critical ones, the altitude limiting balloons that were going to be on the top of the stack. They never got built. They were supposed to be in between the colored balloons. The colored balloons were separators. There should have been a much larger, slightly overinflated balloon that was designed to pop first. And they were designed to pop in the 10,000, 12,000, 13,000 foot range, so that we would rise up, they'd stop popping, and we would kind of level off. A couple things conspired to where our flight profile that was totally different. As we look in hindsight now, oh yeah, that makes sense. But we had like 2 or 3 things working against us. The balloons not popping was one. The general population balloons not popping was one. The balloons specifically designed to pop were not even in the mix. Right? And while we're on the ground waiting to leave, we left a couple hours late, the balloons got just soaking wet on the surface with condensation. So when we left, we were, among a variety of other things, we were carrying quite a bit of temporary water we didn't really realize. So as we started going up, hit the sun and the clean and the drier air, it was almost like we were dumping ballast without even realizing it, because the water was evaporating. And so when we should have been slowing down, we actually started to accelerate. So that is one of the things that caused, this one more thing that caused us into the overshoot condition that we got. So while balloons were getting inflated, the platform was pretty much finished off. The guys had put the radio on, they put the antennas on, the battery packs were in. The electronics were being worked on in the kitchen. The software was still being tweaked. That didn't get compiled and downloaded like the last minute. And then so they got the craft, the mobile launch pad out there, and then we ended up repositioning it because we couldn't work on the lines. They laid out all the lines, getting ready for it to inflate. And then what they had to do is they had to inflate the apex first. And once the apex went up, the water bag was attached to that. Once that got up, then the lines were taut and it looked like a craft. Once the apex was up, the lines were taut, and they were able to start now configuring the rest of the craft. The control balloons went on, hooked the electronics up, had to plumb in different, all these other last minute details. They couldn't happen until out in the field and the apex was lifted by the first set of balloons. So there was quite a few things that were going on in parallel. The fill station certainly involved the most people and was the most active, but really there were 6 different things going on, 6 different directions at once. I really have no idea. The plan was, I had ordered, the plan was 72 of the larger ones, 21 of the smaller ones, and about 12 or 14 of the 36 of the babies. The baby ones are about that big, 36 inches. I know we were short at least 6 of the big ones, 5 of the big ones. I don't know many. I know we lost several of the small ones. I don't know the final number, actually. I'm not sure if anybody does. Just because no one bothered to count each one that popped or got lost one way or another. Several got rejected right here in the garage before we even put helium in them, just compressed air. So I would guess it was about 80 total, should have been about 100. So they were smaller, and we're missing physically 20% of the number of balloons. So it's pretty obvious that the flight did not go exactly as planned, but it's okay. The original idea was that we would lift off, go up at about 1 meter per second, 180 feet per minute, kind of a nice stable cruise, level off pretty much automatically, and the 11,000, 11,500, 12,000 range, probably overshoot a little bit and kind of level off at that, using the control systems, popping some balloons, And then after things were stable, I wanted to drift up to something just under 18,000 and then return back down to 12,000 and not need oxygen and cruise until for the rest of the day. That was the plan. Reality was quite different. First of all the ballast was left behind. The Daisy air rifle I had intended to shoot the balloons out with, it didn't take. All these different things, a variety. I didn't have my primary GPS. There were quite a few things that compromised the flight before we even started, including no ballast, but actually the balloons are drying out. I'm going too fast. But really, it started out okay. Where things are going up, there's no hint that anything is wrong. We're going up, it's a nice stable 1.1, 1.2 meters per second. A little bit faster than we thought, but well within the margin of error considering how little ballast we had to work with. And that part was just great. It was just so nice. It was calm. Every now and then the balloons would ride a little bit, make me a little bit nervous, but it was stable. I'm going up and I'm going up and I'm going up. And it's a little bit colder. I put my cold weather gear on and I got my gloves and I got my lap robe. And in my head, I'm like, I'm cool. It's nice. I'm feeling good. I can talk on the radio. And then it's like I hear a balloon pop. They're supposed to. So I should be hearing balloons popping. So I hear one or two, and that's okay. That sounds good. But what I didn't realize was there was too few and too late. And the balloons that were designed to pop should have been popping faster and earlier. So now I'm 12,000 feet and I'm still skyrocketing. So I get a little bit nervous. I turn the control system on and I do a little test. It's not really doing much. Talking to guys on the radio. Turn the manual controls on to drain helium. And we now realize there just wasn't enough pressure in the delta P to drive helium out. So that it worked, but it wasn't really effective in how the response that we needed. So now it's like 7,000 feet, and okay, this is not going right. So I pop two of the balloons. I got a stick with a razor blade, and the balloons are around me, and I just pop a couple of balloons, a little spooky. And so it's got to have an effect, but I'm looking at, I can kind of read my altitude over here from the control system, and it's not really changing the rate of climb. So now it's like I'm like either just above or just past 18,000 feet. So I popped out 4 more, small ones and a couple of the big ones. Made a big difference in lift. It slowed down the acceleration and it slowed down the rate, but I was still had a positive rate of climb. So then I poked out almost every balloon I had. Okay, it was a pretty drastic change. I left 2 of the larger balloons left, the only controls I had left. And then I could see, okay, I'm still going up, but I'm starting to slow down. I'm just going to ride it out, and we're going to hit an apogee and come back down again. So I know we're still climbing, but I can just see the profile. I know we're going to be safe. So I rode it out, and it turns out that we went like 21,000 feet. I don't know the exact number, but it was really high. High enough to where I really should have had oxygen. I could tell the air was cold, but I felt quite warm. I had good gear. Of all the things I gave up earlier when we were searching for just grams to exit the craft, when we tried to get rid of ballast earlier, I kept all the cold weather gear. And that turned out to be a very good decision. I was warm the whole time, and that could have made a dangerous situation could have become much worse had I not been comfortable. So eventually, I just started coming back down, and came back on 18,000 feet. But then I had no ballast to give up, so I really couldn't stop the decline. So once I peaked, it was just basically a slow fall all the way into the landing. So the landing into the tree was definitely a cool thing. But I'm stuck. I'm about a third of the way down, so maybe like 60 feet, 50 feet from the ground. I eventually realized that all my lines are tossed, so the apex or something above me is caught above me. So I'm hanging pretty much neutral, a little bit lean back, a little bit this way. So I'm kind of in the chair going like this, to take balance. I'm afraid it's about to slip. I'm getting ready to crash. And I'm like, well, what do I do? Do I do this? And I'm waiting to crash. And I'm calling on the radio, on Blue Imagine, any radio. No response. I'd go through the channels, different channels. And finally, Justin, one of our guys, is driving around. He gets within radio range. I had just before I went in, I got Dave on the radio, and I go, Dave, write this down. I gave my coordinates as I was coming in. And so he had called 911, so they had a clue. So then I'm in the chair for like hours, and then I get the search and rescue guys on the radio, or sheriff guy, somebody. I didn't know who it was at first. So they can't find me, so they're driving around, they stop, and they blow the siren, and they say, yes, I believe you're my southeast. And okay, no, I hear you, you're further away, but you're to my west now. And basically we zeroed in, I did have a whistle, and I'm blowing the whistle, and they're listening for it. And so eventually they found me. This guy comes walking down the hill, looks up and says, guy in a tree. Don't see that every day. He gets on the radio, he's talking, he's talking back to his buddies. I can't hear him. And these other 3 or 4 guys come down, and they get these bundles and bags, and they open them up, and they got like ropes and pulleys and all this gear and helmets and chainsaws, and they're talking, and I can hear them talking, right? And so I'm trying to figure out how would I do this. So I'm listening. They go, yeah, we're gonna tie up a lay over here, and we'll rope them off this over here, and you climb that, we'll do this. And one guy goes, and I'll bag them. So this guy comes up to bag me. So I'm in this tree, right? I'm suspended by these branches, and every time, a bird lands, I go like this, and this guy starts climbing the tree. And I can feel the tree shaking, and I'm just getting ready to start. I'm gonna die right here in front of him, and and there's no video, but at least they'll see it. But this guy climbs the tree, kind of checks me out, and he knows I'm diabetic. We talk a little bit, and it was cool. These guys had the right equipment. They had the right stuff. They knew how to use it. They were a team. They talked. They worked. They said, we're going to do A, B, C, D, and they did A. These guys were great. Guy comes up, ties something off, sends a rope up, and he throws me a rope. He's about maybe 8-10 feet away from me on the nearest tree. And he throws me a rope and a carabiner, and I put that into my harness. So now I'm tied to the tree, I'm seatbelted the chair, and I'm tied to my safety line. So then he takes the chainsaw, clears a bunch of branches out, goes above me, ties off again, and ties off a pulley. Runs the rope up to the pulley and back down again, and gives me that rope. So now I got 2 lines. One's a belaying line and one's a load line. She goes, well, are you ready? Yeah, I'm ready. He goes, okay, step out of the craft. So I'm like 60 feet off the ground. I'm in the only thing I know to be stable, right? He represents safety. He's like more than arm's reach away. So there's like a gap of faith I have to leap here to do that. But I get up out of the chair, sort of, it's kind of half leaning, he's kind of half pulling on me. And I just stepped out into space, and they had me, and they swung me into the tree, and I just basically walked down the tree. It was just like it was a nature park thing. It was great. I got down, and I took 2 steps and said, I walked away from the landing. Then I kneeled down, and I had to pee. Would I do it again? So no one's thought about this more than me. Everyone asks. I always have the same sort of half answers. Absolutely, I would love to do it again. I'd start tomorrow. Originally I had about a 5-flight plan to get to the big one. This would have been about the 2nd or 3rd one, not the one and only. So in the scope of wanting to set a record, wanting to go coast to coast. I wanted to go from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean. That was my goal, and it still is my goal, I guess. So yes, I would do it again. I accomplished the main thing in that I did it, and I got off the ground. You know, and with just backyard tools, the same science you learned in the 8th grade. You know, just daring to follow your dream. I accomplished that. So I could stop right now and feel very, very good, right? Just, I would do it again. It's cool, way cool. I would want to do it a little bit differently. To be perfectly honest, this is not my wife's favorite thing. It is admittedly quite selfish. It's a Joe thing. It's not an us thing. This was, you know, much more expensive than I thought. You know, it's like once you get into it, you can't stop now. And another $100 at Home Depot, you have no choice, you know. And fortunately, a lot of people chipped in a lot in time and money and materials. It was amazing about, you know, a little bit of time, how much resources I collected. But really, I would love to do it again and do it, and you know, the next scale up, I would take the next big step. And maybe take a parachute.
And oxygen.
And oxygen. And a higher caliber BB gun.